Hello and welcome to today's Desire Mastermind. I want to start by talking to you about a few things, including the tweaking and the fine tuning and that next level of awareness that gets you more consistent manifesting than when you first start out and you get an idea and you do something and you get a result and then you go to do it again, and why isn't it repeatable or why isn't it working? And there's a lot of energy modulation going on that you have to be aware of. So if you think that everything happens on a continuum, when I teach you all about victim mindset versus creator, it's not like you're in one or the other. It's a continuum, and the same with unconscious and conscious creating, because you are always in a continuum and you're creating 24/7. These laws are going on whether you choose to work with them or believe them or not. And so even people who are really unconscious about this can have something happen that look like a miracle or luck or things like that. But once you realize you are always consciously or unconsciously manifesting, and it can be a little scary, but when I got to the place where I take 100% responsibility for everything that shows up in my life, and then I couple that with the belief that spirit is always working in my favor when things happen that are bad instead of good, or things I don't like, I still believe they're working to get me what I need, want, and desire, and where I'm saying that I want to go. And then I've just got to really look at what's showing up, where am I resisting? And that's what I'm talking about today. When it's a lot of resisting and then trying and then getting into it and making things happen, and then it's working slowly and it feels heavy or a lot of work, you're working against it. Like if you've ever tried to ride your bike or walk or drive into the wind coming directly at you. So you want to be aware of this conscious creating and unconscious creating. And this is all about monitoring your energy states. Something, any of you that follow Tony Robbins, and he's been doing all this transformational work for a lot of years, and there are a lot of people who have, but he really talked in a language that people could understand about. He said, all these things we're all teaching you, all the tricks and tips and tools and techniques, if you would understand that the most important and key element is your state of being. And once I heard that and I really understood that, and I started paying attention to my state of being, your state of being can either get in the way or be the thing that brings you things where people say you're lucky, you're a great manifester, it happens so quickly and easily and effortlessly. And so it's really being aware of that state of being and monitoring your energy management and your emotional mastery. So if you are someone, and this can come down as generational patterns, learned behaviors, there can be biological components. It can be the way you were raised in a family. My family, for instance, really was from their own upbringing and years and generations. They were very reactive to crisis and trauma, and they were very reactive to when things would happen. Everyone had to get all worked up and upset. And then there was this relief that would come in when it was settled. And so then when I got to a point in my life where there wasn't a crisis or trauma, I found I still had an addiction to that relief. And so, as I look back at different times, it was interesting because then I sought that out, because I went and worked in crisis and trauma, and I was very good at it because I associated, okay, there's crisis and trauma. We know how to survive this. And your brain will do the strangest things, and it knows how to survive certain things, and it will keep seeking those out, even if they're not good for you and they no longer serve you, because it knows how to survive it. And so here I went and worked in crisis and trauma, and I would get calmer the more crisis and trauma, because then I somehow felt like the relief is coming. And then in my own life, I realized that I would create it when I didn't have it in my life. So for me, I didn't know how to be bored. I didn't know how to be serene. I didn't know how to be nothing big is happening. So what that looked like when I was young was a very toxic marriage where we were always fighting and reacting and blowing up, and workplaces where that was going on because my nervous system would need that and create it until I was aware of it, because it also has you working and living in that beta brainwave state, that fight or flight. And I had to really take a deep dive into energy management, emotional mastery, and all of these pieces. We talked last week about a little bit about 12-step and transitioning from that. And I had my own journey being married to an addict and being codependent in that 12-step world. And part of what you see is that it creates its own element where generations, it comes down biologically and physiologically as a generational disease. And they've proven that, but it also, with everyone in the family, even those who don't carry the addiction gene. So in my own family, my grandfather was an addict, my father was not, then my brother was an addict, but all of us responded to the alcoholic addict family in our own ways. And you just create these ways of doing it, and your emotions are going everywhere and your energy is going everywhere. So being aware, this is an extreme example that I'm giving you, because you will have some patterns in your own family, and being able to understand, for instance, if every time money was spent and then there was a big blow up, or another one I'm really familiar with from clients of mine and friends is you could take the big vacation, but leading up to it and during and after, there is guilt, there is worry, there's fear. I had one client finally identify that. And then her homework was to plan a family trip and go on it and not do all that. They would talk about it, they would worry about it, they would fret. And it was a pattern. So she didn't know how to not do it. And it would serve a purpose, almost like we're going to be okay as long as we play out this pattern. And what that does is it keeps your brain and your body engaged and your fight or flight. And you may not even know what it feels like. Things like getting up in the morning, and are you trained and wired to start worrying right away, or whatever your thing is. So when you're manifesting and you're aware of your state of being, one of the things to be aware of, I'm talking about the energy management and the emotional mastery, both, are that the more you can hold a state of being and not let your energy and emotions go all over, the better results you'll get and the better you will feel, and the easier and faster and more in flow things will come to you. I used to use this example that I recognized in the early days of building my business and doing a lot of my own transformation that requires. And I would go off to a conference, and this can happen during a spiritual retreat. I would go off to a spiritual retreat or a conference that was stretching me, and you get in that container and you're in it and you're changing and shifting, but then you go back to your environment, your relationships, your people, your job, your world. And everybody in your world right now is calibrated to your energy. And so when you walk back into that environment and you've changed, it will have all kinds of things showing up and people showing up because they're reacting and responding to your energy change. And a lot of them don't know it. So for instance, it happened a few times early on. I would go to a coaching industry event where they would be saying, you can be all that you want to be. You can be up on these big stages. You can make the money. You don't have to have a job you don't love. And you can do all this. And you start shifting and growing. And then I would come home and my pets would be sick. My children would be acting out. My husband would be picking some crazy fight that was very unlike him. And it even looks like, it sounds wild, but it happens so many times, and you all may have had it. My water heater breaks, my dishwasher breaks, my air condition goes out. All these things start happening. And I was aware it's because if you make a big shift and then you go back in your environment, suddenly nothing is calibrated to this new shift you've made. So what happens then is everyone and everything pulls on you because they're bigger than you and they're more than you, and they want you to come back into resonance with them. Your environment. Have you ever been at something? I've seen this happen, not just to me, but other people. And you're something and you're triggered by, say, mother stuff, and you're working on mother stuff, and then your phone's going off and it's your mother calling, and your mother doesn't usually call, or whatever it is, whoever that is, those things are very real. So then it's all pulling on you. Stop it, stop this, it's uncomfortable. And then we often will collapse because we feel everyone else's discomfort, especially because we're empaths. And then we'll go back to what's comfortable and familiar, even though it no longer serves us. And what I recognized with the help of a healer and coach that I had at that time, it takes about 2 weeks of holding that new energetic state and being okay with everybody else, whatever they're going through, and being so committed to yourself and your authenticity that, and your healing and transformation and your results, that you hold it and let everyone and everything else come into a new resonance with you. But it can be so uncomfortable. First of all, when it's happening unconsciously, because then one of the stories I got, which was a story from my childhood, here I go off to build a business and do something for myself. My whole house falls apart. Nothing goes right. Everything's going wrong. I can't leave again. I can't do this, or not now, later. But luckily this time, 15 years ago, I was done playing that out. I used to leave jobs because, oh, my family needs me, or I'm creating problems now. I was always the one to quit whatever I was doing to appease. And when I held it finally, it was uncomfortable, because those people and things are very committed to you staying the same. It can show up in your workplace, with your friends, with your family, in your environment, all of those things. So once I was at least aware of it, then I could say, oh, this is what it is. I was just away and I was shifting. Another one that would happen when I started really building my business, my kids weren't little, but 2 of them were still at home. So middle school and then high school. And literally I would go away to one of these events. One time I was at a VIP weekend with a coach, and we were doing big shifting work. And every time, the minute I started doing the work away from home, my pretty grown children would start freaking out and having crisis. And they were very real to them, but it happened so many times that I realized I've got to work on what's underneath this, because I'm getting caught up in it. The phone would start blowing up, the messages, and they would all, because they felt me no longer being available in the same way or moving away. And that's where a parent can go in crisis, or a partner, or my children. And it happened so many times. And then when I finally became aware of it, and then I noticed it, and then I started clearing it, like, this is not going to be the story anymore. We even had a crazy one where my pets would get sick every time I left home, or lost, or something bad would happen. And once I cleared it, it stopped happening, because I had to stop the story. I can't leave home or bad things will happen to the people I'm in charge of and that I love. And then when I recognized even further that when I was a child, my dad was entrepreneurial and he was always going and traveling to create money, to try to create business, but it created a lot of financial issues, and it created issues with my parents. And when I was 12, my parents divorced because of it. My mother had an affair, my parents divorced, but then 4 years later, my parents got back together and they're still together. But during that time, I used to say all the time, because then my dad went on and he invented some things and he created things and he created a lot of success for himself. But I still, in my mind, I had this story I was stuck on because of my traumatic childhood during those years. And even when we got back together as a family, it affected our family dynamic for a lot of years. And I would always say, well, yeah, he created the success, and now my parents are living a much bigger and better life in a lot of ways, and my brother and sister. But wow, that was a heavy price to pay. And I realized I was carrying it around and making a story. And if you realize whatever you despise or judge or hate or fear, you will never allow yourself to be that. So the evidence I kept getting was, if I try to go do that, things are going to happen and my family's going to fall apart. And I had to catch it and change that story. And then it changed. So that's when you know this is real. You can't make this up, because it changed. But we can make up stories about anything we're doing, and then we'll see the evidence of that. So in that way, if I come home and I've just made this shift, but then people are pulling on me and things are pulling on me in my own stories, then I go, see, that's happening and that's happening. I'm like this energetically and emotionally. I'm so high from this event and I just had great results, and now I'm down, and then I'm up, and then I'm down. The universe is trying to calibrate. And then if you tell stories on top of it, the universe is like, oh, wait, I thought you wanted this, but now you're telling this story, and whatever you say is. And that's when you just get these crazy storms around you, because the universe has to give you everything that's in your order and everything that you are bringing. And so where I came all the way from unconsciously creating chaos and drama, I mean, every workplace I would step into, and I never understood why. And then I learned through brain science later with some of my mindset and manifesting coaches that our brain just knows, and our energy, to seek out, this is like this. So they're saying some part of me knew on some level to keep going into that, because then it would happen. And then I'd be like, oh, I know how to handle this. I know who I am in this. I know what I can do in this, but it would make me sick. And then I'd eventually have to leave. And so we do these crazy things to ourselves. And I didn't know what it would be like to just be in an environment that was calm. It's like, well, then who am I? Because I thrive in crisis and drama and trauma. First, I married it. Then I had it in my workplaces, before that in my family. And as you become aware of this, then you just get to that place of like, humans are crazy. Humans are ridiculous. You also understand the part where the brain has to do these things so that we have survived as a species for however many years we believe that we've been on the planet. So it serves a place, but it wasn't meant to be overriding and all encompassing like we've made it. So you can start being really aware this week and moving forward. How often, what is your overriding state of being? How often do you start getting in any kind of yo-yo with that? And how quickly can you pull yourself back, and what can pull you back? So, I've been pretty good now and I'm pretty aware of it. And I got invited, I think I talked about it a little bit last time. I got invited to be on a committee where there's a lot of stuff being acted out, and I was prepared for it. And I know I was meant to be part of it. But even so, it got the best of me, because at first I was like, yes, I expect this. This is playing out, but I'm supposed to be in the eye of the storm, working and helping while they all act this out. But then I got triggered in a huge way by somebody in the group. And once I got triggered, I recognized my trigger, because then I no longer could hold my own, because then it's like, I want bad things to happen to you. I hate you. I want to do something. I want to expose you. I want to tell everybody. And I got sucked in. And that's when I had to realize, and I had to lean on my tools like crazy. It was making my stomach sick. It was making me so upset. I wanted to quit. I wanted to say bad words to people. I wanted to do all of that. And then it was like, okay, but a moment of that, and I could ruin it, where they would just say, okay, thank you for your service, you can go away. Or I could storm off, but other people were doing that. And I know I'm supposed to be here for a long game. And so I was like, it's not worth it. I can't afford the luxury of a negative thought. And it took everything. Like, how do I get back to that place? One day I was like, it took me into the depths of like, humans are so horrible to each other, because this group is spiritual people. They're enlightened people. They, of course, we know they can be the worst when they get triggered or in their stuff, but these are like people who serve humanity. And one day I was just like, I'm so sad, I can't even think about the planet anymore. It took me that big, not just this group of people, but like, I'm so sad about the planet. How do we even keep living here? And I had to come back from it. And that's when you have to really get your tools. There were a few days where I could not get back. And then it affects everything else. And it's affecting my health. It's affecting me. It's affecting me be able to love these people. And I had to just keep coming back and realizing all these people are triggered, playing out dramas. I can see what's going on, but you can't allow yourself to get sucked in. You've got to have that part of you that's the observer. They talk about this a lot in shamanism, and we talked about this some last week. You need you now. You can have the little you or the other aspects of you, and then you need this observer, because I had to keep reminding myself these are hurt people acting out. I mean, there were some terrible things being said and done, and it took me really digging in. And what I could feel was, and in the moment, if it's bothering you, yeah, show up, fight your good fight, do your part. I spoke up, and that wasn't the problem. I said, I've been really good, but I can't tolerate this, and I can't support this. And I spoke up. But once I hang up that phone or finish that meeting, then I need to be able to turn around and be in my life okay. And I wasn't. And then I'm going to bed thinking about it. I'm waking up thinking about it. And it took me a few days, and I had to really be like, what will get me out of this? And that's when you have to recognize, how do you modulate yourself, and how do you modulate your feelings and your energy and get control of your energy? Because there's a big thing here with a lot of potential and great things to be done. And yet I can't do it if I'm in this low vibration, hating everyone and feeling horrible, like it's hopeless and in despair. I've got to get back up here and hold that. And that was when I felt myself up and down. I went on a sugar jag, and then that made it worse. And then I was just a mess. And it was right at around the same time that my grandson was being born, which is a really amazing experience. So just a few weeks ago. And yet here I could see, this is how I really knew it was affecting me. I'm over here trying to enjoy oh my gosh, my grandson's here, he's being born. This is so exciting. And then over here dealing with this and these people, and it was all meshing together. And I couldn't get out of it to fully like be in the experience. I'm on the way to the hospital to meet my grandson, reading and sending these ugly texts and, fighting and all that. And then I was like, I'll have to come back to this. I'm on the way to the hospital to meet my new grandson. Thank you. And that's when I realized it was like really pulling on me. And those things will happen. You're triggered, especially, we have things we're passionate about and we see it all playing out, but I wasn't going to be able to do anything good from that place. And I was like drinking the poison, like they say, and hoping the other person would be hurt by it. And so it was affecting me when I wanted to just be in joy with my grandson. And I just wanted to do these great things as part of this committee. So I had to keep getting back to what is the state of being of Michelle? What is my state of being? And then where am I? And how do I rein that in? So the other thing I don't do in my family, we got the message. My family were very intellectuals and athletes. So your mind and your body, but not emotions and not your spirit. And so they were about, you don't feel things, and you certainly don't tell people if you feel things, and it would get stuff. So I was also being aware, this is valid feelings you're having, Michelle, and you should feel them. Oh, I feel angry and I feel sad and I feel all these things. Feel them, but then let them move through you. Don't hold on to them. Then I can pick them up and just really fight, but not from an empowered place. So all that going on at the same time, and you start being aware of coming in and out of your state of being. And at the core, we are working on our state of being. I mean, the minute you were born, you're perfect, whole, and complete. You showed up on the planet with a plan. Everyone up there said yes. You were born under very specific star system, wired and designed a certain way, all of that. I look at so many of those different tools, and across the board, they are so accurate. So you came in at the exact right place. Then you get programming and conditioning and generational patterns. And then you're in a body that has a life purpose that has to come alongside your soul purpose. So your soul purpose, then your life purpose in this body at this time, and all these layers get on. And so coming back to that state of being, of who you are and who you're becoming, and always being aware of that. It's on my podcast with Gina DeVee when she was my coach in 2021 and into part of last year. She taught me a lot about becoming a vibrational match. And we did a podcast about that. And so if you haven't watched or listened to that, I'll give that to you, because she was just really a master at helping me with that's what it comes down to. You can go out and make things happen and get things and do things, or you can become a vibrational match and attract it to you. And I've experienced both in really dramatic ways. So think about that coming into a new energetic space, and you're like, wow, here I am. And some results are coming in, and then what pulls on you, trying to get you to fall out of that, especially when it's people we love, or your children, or a partner, or your pet, or your parents, or any of that. And you see, and you have to realize too, you have to be compassionate that they're very unconscious in it. I mean, there are people who are more emotionally manipulative than others, and narcissists that end up a lot with empaths, and addicts who have behaviors. But my kids weren't saying every time mom leaves, we're going to call her and bother her and be in crisis. And yet it was happening over and over and over again. It's unconscious. And then I also always realized that when I signed up for this uber transformative journey over these past years, they didn't sign up for that, but they are affected. They have free will, but they're affected because I'm changing and I won't be the same. And so any people that are in your world like that, short term or ongoing, they get pulled into that. So this is now not just getting into an emotional state and getting that energy management and emotional mastery, but how often and quickly do you get pulled in and out? How can you get yourself back? And sometimes, I know things that I can do. Sometimes it's self-care things or things that bring you joy, but sometimes you can just get pulled into something where you've got to just get in there and be your own therapist or spiritual advisor or healer, and you've got to just look it right in the face and see what it is. And of course, then you can also get help. I have a few trusted people that can help me with it, but I had to just really get in there, especially with this being a long game, because I could either remove myself from those people, but I'm there to do something. And in order to do that, and I'm committed to it, I have to stay, but I have to take care of myself while I'm in there. Just like you can leave a job or you can change, and then everybody else has to adjust to that. So really thinking about that, everyone and everything calibrated to you, and start noticing anytime. I even have things like sometimes I'm going through big shifts, and I have a few friends that are very close. I have some friends still from high school. We don't see each other all the time, but we're always there for each other, and a best friend from college. And there are times when I'm going through things, nothing specific happened between me and one of those really longtime friends. And all of a sudden there's like a falling out, and I'm aware of it. And it's like, nothing specific. There wasn't a big fight or something, but they're either not liking my energy or wanting to deal with me, or I've upset them, or I'm staying away from them and their energy right now. And it can be hard. And then sometimes they'll come back around, because the other thing, if you believe the whole big picture, if you have a partner or spouse in your life, if you have children in your life, if you have best friends in your life, even work people, everyone in your life, you all have soul contracts. On some level, you agreed to meet right here, right now. So even clients who act up and fall out with me, or family issues or anything, we all agreed, and then we all have free will and choice. So when I make my energetic choice and my energetic stance and hold it, they have the choice to either rise up to meet me or drop out. And that's where y'all have experienced, most likely, it can be sad, or it can feel bad, that because they get to choose, and some of them will swing back around and new people will show up. And yet you can just see and feel it, especially with people that have been around you a long time, because they didn't maybe want to go where you're going. So being aware of all of that, and then how true are you going to be to your energy no matter what? Because your energy being at its highest and best is always going to bring you everything you want and need and desire, and your highest and best. And I believe if every person would focus first on their highest good and their highest and best, it would ultimately be the highest and best for everyone. But it's scary to do, it's challenging to do. So first, I find with helpers and healers especially, I just have to show them how the highest good of all has to include you. And I remember now that just seems, well, of course, but there was a time when I was like, wait, what? And I couldn't get there because I wasn't doing it. I was everybody before me. And if it's the highest good of others, it may or may not help me. Now I know and believe that the highest good of all has to include me. But then your next level of that spiritual evolution is, if you were always about your highest and best good, it would be the highest and best of everyone and all the things. But people will pull on you, and you have all kinds of energetic ties and agreements with people. So that's another one to be aware of. What energetic dances that you no longer want are you doing with people where it's like, I do this and you do this, I say this and you say this, then this happens and this, and you go, I'm going to change the dance, then they have to change, but they get to choose how they change. So really being aware of your energy states, your state of being, and holding them and staying in them. And then what are you so committed to? Because it's a lot of times when you're moving toward what you're really committed to and your purpose that it becomes inconvenient for other people. And you start seeing where they maybe don't want you to do that. That's really what I want you to focus on, and on that becoming a vibrational match. When you can do that, and then how long can you stay in it? It feels easy and it feels flow, like I've talked about, catching that wave and surfing it and being in the field where you can create so many things in such big and fast and easy ways. So some of the things I've taught you all is, again, Spirit is always working in my favor. And another one I always say when there are lessons obviously to learn, give me my lessons with grace and ease. I don't need any big 2x4 brick to the head or any of that at this point, because once you become more conscious and aware and committed, you can say, give me my lessons with grace and ease. So I used to just be like, show me, or I'd say, why is this happening? And one of my coaches said, that is the most horrible question to ask. Why? Because if you ask, why is this happening? The universe then has to just keep giving you opportunities to show you why this is happening. And it becomes like Groundhog Day over and over. And so I learned to stop asking, why is this happening? So now I will say, give me my lessons with grace and ease. I'd rather read a book or hear somebody talk about it or see something for myself than get some big painful lesson at the stage I'm in now. Also, those of you who have been working with this now in this container for the first 30 days, what you want to really become aware of now, and we'll talk more about this next week, but for you to be thinking about is you're really now at a place to start taking consistent, aligned, inspired action. First, you're learning to recognize it. Remember, it's all the stuff that comes in inconvenient, uncomfortable, expensive, illogical. And you're learning to see the opportunities, say yes, expand to know that also your blessings can fall from the sky into your lap. You get rid of anything about you have to work hard for them, you have to earn them, you have to pay your dues, any of that. But how often and how quickly are you responding to take that inspired, aligned action? Because the universal law and principle is act, assess, and adjust. And some of you may now be at a place where you've taken at least one inspired, aligned action, so that now you can start assessing, what am I getting back? What's showing up? What is calibrated to me right now in my world? Who's been acting up in my world this month and for the past weeks, or what's shown up? Sometimes for me, it'll be all of a sudden there's money owed to me all over and it can't get to me. That is a pattern. It seems like it's not related because it comes from different places, but then it's a pattern that you can identify, and you start acting, assessing, and then course correcting and adjusting. And those little course corrections and adjustment can start turning that cruise ship or that jet plane around in the direction you want to go. As you all think about that and let that land for a minute,